Hello everyone, welcome to Talks at Google. Today is my absolute pleasure to welcome Mars Hallman, the winner of the 2015 GLSEN Respect Award for the Student Advocate of the Year, and Stephanie Frosch, who you might know as ElloSteph from YouTube. Thanks both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Applause. So, I'm going to start off by talking about gender pronouns, because that's what one does. I think it's an important thing because I think it's something that maybe the public doesn't always wrap their head around easily, but it's important to the people who want to be identified maybe not as he, she, or anything in between. So Mars, I'm going to let you take this one. Can you explain to us a little bit about how you prefer to be referred to and the reasoning for that?
Right. I use the pronouns they, them, and theirs because they don't have the gender connotation of he, him, his, or she, her, hers. And you use them the same way you would if you were talking in the third person plural. It's very simple.
And the reasoning for that is?
They're important to me. I'm non-binary, and they reaffirm my gender identity when people use them.
And just, can you explain what non-binary is for our viewers out there?
I'm not a boy, and I'm not a girl, and I'm not anything in between.
Wonderful. So Mars, you are the Student Advocate of the Year. Can you talk about what some of the process of becoming an advocate for, the LGBTQ, everyone in between community was like for you?
Well, my process was being the Q in LGBTQ, growing up as the Q. You see a lot of bullying and inequality and harassment, and you see that happening to your friends and to yourself, and you grow up and you become strong from that, and I grew up having the privilege of having parents who support me and having a safe place at home, knowing my friends don't have that. I know that school and the workplace are the places that are going to be safe for them. So I know that I have to make those places safe for them.
And you led an effort at your school in particular to kind of make sure that there were bathrooms that were appropriate for anybody who didn't want to identify as either one. Can you talk about some of the other things that you kind of took care of along the way that helped create this safe space?
Well, I started the Gay Straight Alliance at my school, the first one in the region. Woo! And that itself was a struggle. Getting support from local parents wasn't going to happen. So we got a sponsor. I spoke myself to the principal. We actually, I got resources from GLSEN and from the Gay Straight Alliance Network and proposed the club. And it was deferred to a school board meeting decision, which was then deferred. And it wasn't, they announced through the paper that it was going to be allowed. So the Gay Straight Alliance started. We had our first meetings recently, actually at the start of Ally Week.
Congratulations.
Wow. So far we've worked on educating people on gender pronouns, gender identities, and done some just fun activities, making sure everyone knows that they're welcome at school, no matter who they are.
Awesome. Steph, you have a larger kind of platform to use. You are a YouTube sensation.
I do the YouTube.
You do the YouTube. Could you talk to us about, you definitely bring kind of a positive air and like an air of humor to these issues that I think we need. I think it's if you get too caught in they're serious issues, they're kind of sometimes upsetting issues, but you bring this very like, hey, it's okay, it's fine, it's fun. Can you talk about kind of the process of developing your voice online?
Well, I started when I was in high school on Tumblr, and the reason why my Tumblr sort of grew was because at the time it was very rare finding a feminine lesbian on the internet at my age. I mean, this was 2011, but at the same time it was like finding a shiny Pokemon. So that's how I grew my audience on Tumblr, and from there I would just write. I was very big into writing, but eventually I had a fan say, I really love what you write, but I hate reading. Could you make a video? And I was like, I have all this free time, why not? So not having a life actually paid off, and it just kind of grew from there, and I realized that I started getting more serious questions in regards to being kicked out of your home, to things like wanting to commit suicide, and from there I wanted to be more certified to answer those questions because I felt like I wasn't. So I got my certification in suicide prevention, and I was on the board for LGBTQ plus services at my university, and from there I was like, how can I include entertainment and these issues that I'm so passionate about? So a way that I see it is like dipping a broccoli in chocolate. So one of my most successful videos, which is about gender recognition and sexuality recognition, is called Never Have I Ever, which, that popular game, Never Ever Done This. So it starts out fun and cheerful, and then it gets into more serious issues with the statistics. So I'm like, if I can get someone to watch something and be intrigued by it while still learning and keeping it at a lighter note, then I feel like you're more likely to take that in and more likely to be accepting. And it's how we learn, it's how we process. But you get always in school, you want to get an A because the teacher then congratulates you, not because the teacher puts you down for getting the answer wrong. So I feel like that's how society is.
It's very carrot, not the stick.
Yeah.
You made an amazing point where we do live in this kind of wonderful era where maybe, apparently even 4 years ago, it's tough to find someone who maybe identifies in the same way you do. We're all individuals, we're all different. But if you grow up in a small town, maybe you don't necessarily have those resources, and you don't. But Mars, for you, was the internet kind of playing a role in your support system and kind of getting your efforts off the ground?
Yes. The internet is where I first learned about queer and transgender issues through just various support groups and just databases, just learning statistics. I contacted the Gay Straight Alliance Network through the internet, a lot of Google searching, and that's how I got in contact with Anna Davis and Chris Hampton of the ACLU, and that was where we got a lot of the support for getting the GSA and just for learning that it's okay to be me.
Steph, I think that's one of the things you kind of touch on in most of your videos. Like, it's okay to be you. It's okay to be
yeah,
whoever.
Because oftentimes in small towns, you don't have that reassurance that it's okay. And the internet is an amazing outreach for that. I mean, I went to a religious private school from kindergarten to senior year, or as I like to call it, Jew school. And it was great, but at the same time, I was the only LGBTQ plus identified person. So I had no resources. I had no one to go to. But by simply typing something into the internet, I had a community, I had the support, I had the outreach, and I feel like that's so important for millennials and the new generations today is we're so connected now that no one has to be alone anymore.
Is that what's one thing you really hope that your audience takes away from your videos? Is that you're not alone? Is it?
It's definitely that they're not alone, and definitely how not everything in society needs to be a taboo subject. I mean, even back in the day, my first college roommate was gender non-binary, and they weren't comfortable even bringing it up in conversation because people weren't talking about it. And I feel like the more we talk about it and say it's okay to talk about it, the less of a big deal it's going to be. It's going to be, oh, these are your pronouns? Yeah, those are your pronouns, versus what is this? And then making a big deal of it.
Mars, you said something earlier that I enjoyed, and you said, like, Nashville isn't a bad place. And could you talk a little bit more about that in terms of, like, finding acceptance in the real world space versus the internet space?
I grew up in a few different environments. I had a kind of a city upbringing and a country upbringing, and then we moved to Nashville a few years ago on purpose. We didn't think, oh no, we've ended up in, middle of nowhere, what will we do? There's a really great community there with some very vocal people who would oppose, change. But also when I started the GSA and when I started campaigning for equality in my school, lots of adult allies, either from Nashville or who still lived there or had moved away, came to me and my mother with messages of support or thanks. Some of them would send monetary contributions to the GSA. Some of them would send their words and their stories. So it's a good town and with good people.
Yeah, it's good to know. It's good to know that there's support when you ask for it. I'd love to know, this is not, unfortunately the internet is a very supportive place, but the internet can also be somewhat of a disrespectful place. And I think you both probably deal very well with those types of comments and are able to kind of brush them off. And what's some advice you'd give to people who are kind of dealing with the trolls of the internet?
I mean, the way I see it in life in general, you can't please everyone, regardless if it's on or off the internet. There's always going to be someone with a different view than yours. And although I see it as we don't have the same views, I feel like we should still respect it. And some people don't respect it. So whenever I see a troll or someone like that, I feel more sorry for them because I'm like, if you're that insecure, that's why you're fixating on my life and what I'm doing, because I don't go out of my way to bring someone down. The only time that you bring someone down is when you're yourself falling, which is a struggle that I feel that they deal with. So instead, I ignore them. I am fortunate where I don't have a lot of haters. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing because it can bring discussion, it can bring awareness, and the ones that I have had, it's just been very petty things like, wow, you're so gay. And I'm like, yeah, I am. Thank you for that observation. But just simply like viewing it as not taking it personally, because oftentimes it's their issue. And even in person, those are the things that got to me the most growing up when I was called slurs in high school, when I was first out about my orientation, is just my mom used to always tell me that in even 4 years from now, 4 days from now, it's not going to matter. And it's true.
Very much so, yeah. You bring up your mom. Mars, your mother's here with us today. Are there things that you would say to kind of families in order to, what advice would you give to families who maybe who do have children who they don't necessarily immediately understand? Like, what resources would you try and point them to? Or what was the thing that was also most helpful for you in dealing with your family and your coming outs?
Well, one, my parents were very open just listening to me. I would introduce a topic, and whatever they couldn't understand from me, my mom took the initiative, would look up, GLSEN or PFLAG resources. Just making sure that your child's safety and respecting your child's safety is number one always. To make sure that you're questioning them is for the benefit of learning them as a person and not for trying to change them. Make sure you're just learning about them.
My biggest thing is, especially, my dad taught me this, surprisingly enough. My dad is very old school, but also very accepting. But the way that I see it is, I remember one time I had my college roommate coming home after they first came out, and I told my dad, they go by these pronouns, this is what you do, and he's just nodding along. And I asked him, are you following this? And he said, I don't understand it, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to respect it. And that's the way I feel like it should be. You don't have to grasp something and know everything about it right away to validate a person and give them the respect that they deserve. And a big thing is that I've also noticed is, especially from when I get fan mail, a lot of the youth say how their parents don't accept them, so that means they're never going to accept them. They don't have a family anymore, which isn't true either. And I feel like that's important to really recognize that coming out is a process also for the person hearing the news. So my dad, when I first told him, it was very much of a, we're not going to bring this up ever. And now my dad is super supportive, and it can change. Your parents can change. So I know so many people are quick to say, I don't have a family anymore, it's done. But give them time. Parents are close to perfect in our eyes, but everyone has growing room, and they can learn from their children as well.
I think that's a wonderful kind of point, and I think the whole, it gets better, the kind of publicity and awareness that, the recent movements have definitely been helpful in that, and so it's nice to hear that there are resources and there are outlets for people who are willing to change, and I think everyone has the capacity to change. What is one of the moments that you're most proud of in your kind of activism and careers? The award tonight.
I am pretty proud of that.
You should be.
Proud. My proudest moment would be back in junior year, when it was the day I decided that I was going to go through with making sure we had a gay-straight alliance before I graduated. One of my best friends isn't out at home, isn't out to anyone, everyone suspects, was being sexually harassed on the daily by upperclassmen. And it was because he was perceived as queer. And for the first time, I responded to a situation level-headed, removed him, reported it, and that day when I got home, I wrote up our guidelines, I recruited our sponsor, and a week later we had a club in motion. Like, that's what I'm proudest of, is just response.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So I was just not from that. Am I allowed to have like an online one and a non-online one? I feel like it's Hannah Montana with these two modes. My favorite in-person accomplishment is when I was on the board for LGBTQ plus services at my university. I went to the University of Central Florida, and it's a student body of 60,000, and we have a huge LGBTQ plus population, but we had social clubs, but we need more than just social sometimes. So we were literally, our office was a closet in the student union within someone else's office. And it was great having all 6 of us in this closet. But, we were in the closet, look at that. But we were really trying to make a safe space, which we did accomplish, called Pride Commons. And We had several meetings with the whole student government. It was a real struggle to get our needs met, but eventually we got a huge room in the middle of our university where there's resources. We partnered up with victim services. We had an entire legal team, so if a student wanted to change their name, then all of that would be taken care of, like free of charge for them, and that's definitely the biggest in-person accomplishment. And then online, I feel like it's a victory every day when I get a message from someone again saying, hi, 4 years ago, I thought it would not get better. I thought that my life was over, but you told me this, and now I'm doing this. Now I'm at this school. Now I have this partner. Now I have this relationship with my peers, and just seeing a huge growth in someone, even if I never met them face to face, getting to really feel how their life is significantly better there's no words for it.
It's wonderful. You both very much inspire others, but I'd love to know who inspires you.
Oh gosh, this is so hard.
It's like a pop quiz.
Okay, is it? I don't want to be stereotypical, but I love Ellen, and it's not just because she rocks blazers, as I hope to one day, but it's because I feel like her entire energy is about positivity, and that's what I want to do. So even through negative situations, things can get better. And I remember, especially after my mom passed away during my senior year of high school, something that I would have in common with my mom is she watched the Ellen show. So what made me feel better is seeing like old Ellen shows and just seeing how even though something terrible can happen, you don't have to pretend it didn't happen. You don't have to pretend it's better, but you can grow from it. You can make something positive afterwards. And just remember that every negative experience isn't a wall that's blocked. It's the road keeps going and you can change the direction it goes in. So Ellen is a very big inspiration for me, along with a really close friend of mine named Raymond Braun. He does a lot of the advocacy and online marketing for oh my goodness, I'm like blanking right now, and I was on this project.
Proud to play and proud to
Yes, thank you. Proud to play and proud to love. He came up with all of that, and he's just one of the most humble individuals I've ever met in my life, and he's just so active online and in person, so he's another huge, huge inspiration to me.
My biggest inspirations so far have been the entire staff of the Queer Youth Leading the South camp, which I went to last summer, and it was a 5-day-long camp, and Foster Noon and Mustafa Sullivan really helped guide me like spiritually and personally, and I learned a lot from them. They're both activists and advocates. Mustafa does work in New York and California and travels back and forth with youth. And I realized from him that I want to do that. His life is the life I want to contribute to.
Awesome. What is some of the best advice someone has given you? Could be about anything, doesn't have to be about this, just in general.
I have a professor that I'm very close with at my university named Sybil St. Clair, and with her I did a lot of theater for social change, which became like my biggest passion in college. And something she told me during my freshman year, my first class, was sometimes you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable because that's where we most grow. So even if we're in a situation where we don't like what's going on, we don't like being vulnerable, we sometimes have to do it because society has, engraved in us that, vulnerability is weakness, but really it's allowing yourself the strength to feel. So if something isn't going your way or whether it's an event or a situation, you can grow in it.
Well, my dad's a music teacher. He's my music teacher.
Oh, awesome.
Yes. And when we're getting ready for a big audition or a competition, he'll say, just practice 15 minutes tonight. And I'll say, but I'm supposed to practice more than that. And he'll say, practice 15 minutes tonight. Practice 15 minutes. And then the next day I'll say, how long? And he'll say, practice 15 minutes tonight. And so I'll get ready for honor band and I'll get stressed and I'll say, I haven't practiced enough. And he said, have you practiced 15 minutes every day? And I'll say, yes. And he says, you've practiced enough. You practiced every day. So just kind of taking everything chunks at a time. You feel like you're not ready for something. You have time. Give yourself 15 minutes every day. Get yourself ready.
That's advice we all could use here. What time metric doesn't usually work, but for you guys, you're so young. But if you could tell yourself 5 years ago, you tell yourself 5 years ago something, what would it be? You could go like Back to the Future style and be like, the Cubs are gonna lose this year.
5 years. I was in high school. I mean, besides telling myself, you know, don't try and rock the Shane from the L Word look because you can't. I guess the biggest advice, we all know that look. I guess the biggest thing is that, you know, even though things seem awful and even if it's raining outside and there doesn't seem to be any light going through, it doesn't mean the sun isn't behind those clouds. Things do get better, they will get better. I mean, if I was telling myself 5 years ago that I would have an online following with hundreds of thousands of incredible youth wanting to make a difference, I would have never believed it. I mean, in high school, I literally ate lunch in the bathroom, like in Mean Girls, and it didn't have that happy ending. So I didn't think that it was going to get better. I didn't think one person would value my opinion, let alone an entire community. And I feel like it's just important to take every experience as a growing opportunity and realizing that even the negatives isn't an ending, a positive isn't an ending, it can even get better from there, and just realizing it can get so much better if you apply your mind to it.
Well,
Practice.
I was about 11.
That's why I didn't want to ask the question.
I would have told myself to stop wearing Crocs
Good advice. Good advice.
and that my parents are going to love me unconditionally and I've got nothing to be afraid of,
Great advice.
except for those Crocs.
Except for the Crocs.
The international shoe of giving up.
Last question for me is, what's one simple thing that you think people can do to help be an ally?
I feel like the biggest thing to be an ally is not to be afraid to ask questions, because I feel like the easiest way to grow against something is because we don't know. It's a lot easier to say, I hate this, versus I don't know this, let me take the opportunity to understand it. So I feel like asking questions and being honest about it and coming at it through a place of love and wanting to learn versus ignorance is one of the main things, and definitely passing the mic to communities. I mean, when that terrible event with Leila Alcorn happened, I wanted to make a video about it, but I was like, I definitely am too privileged to discuss the transgender community, so let me pass this mic, and in my video, I'm not even in the video because it's not my story, it belongs to this community. So I feel like knowing when to pass the mic and knowing to ask questions is the biggest thing you can do to be an ally.
Always affirm. Don't question someone's feelings about being trans, being queer. Know your intersections. When someone comes to you and tells you, you're coming to me from a place of privilege and you're not understanding, don't say, I do understand, I do, because you don't.
No, you don't.
You don't. And that's okay. You can only gain that understanding by listening when someone tells you, you're coming to me with privilege. Say yes, yes I am.
Do we have audience questions?
Thank you for coming out and chatting with us, and to all the online audience, chatting with them as well. You have a ton of people supporting you who are older adults. You are adults as well, but you know, people your parents' age, our age. And at times it may feel that we're disconnected from you and your experience. You know, we're not in school day to day. You know, we're in the workplace, which is a little bit different, and there are, you know, different rules and structures around each place. But I would ask, for me personally and for all of the adults out there who do support you, what can we do to help you more? What can we do to sort of bridge that connection between your world and our world, where we may be able to do more to help you? And what does that look like, and what could we do?
It looks like listening. It looks like open ears. When a young person comes to you with their experience, you can't come back at them with, you're young, it'll get better, you're young, just wait a few years. Because, you know, for some of us, we can't wait anymore. We can't wait any more years.
It's called Twitter. And no, besides that, I mean, my dad knows nothing about the internet at all. But the biggest thing is that I notice, especially with my professors and parents of friends, is even if we're not going to you, but even saying, I'm here if and when you want to talk, that's the biggest thing. The reason why I was so comfortable coming out to my mom is because even when I was not ready, was not going to talk, she always let me know, I'm here to listen. So definitely keeping open ears, like Mars suggested. And then especially, I know, at least from like my dad, he always says, you know, you don't have it that bad when I was your age. So I feel like just not belittling one's experience, because weight is, what is 10 pounds to me is going to be nothing to like a heavyweight champion. So everyone has a different definition of weight, and just being there and just being open, honest, having those ears. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys, first off, thank you for being here, and I'm totally blown away by you two. I've been sitting here like on the edge of tears, just blown away by youth and your strength in both of how you show that. Steph, your videos are great, but I'm gonna address this to Mars because there would be no way that I could have summoned up the courage to do anything like what you've done in high school. And so I guess what I'd like to know, in creating that in an environment that's not some liberal West Coast enclave, I mean, you are out there doing it. Maybe give one thing that surprised you when you actually went through with it in a positive way, and maybe any negative backlash that you've had to overcome. I guess I'm just really interested that you've done this. I'm just sitting here, you are like this wise person and really impressive.
Thank you. I'm going to start with the negative one because I don't want to end with a negative one.
Feel free.
A negative surprise, all the faith backlash. I think that any faith should be a home, and when you use what should be a shield as a weapon to hurt, that's what surprised me the most and was really awful. I know a lot of my friends came to me and said, what do I do? My parents are huge supporters of this church that's telling me, you personally are dragging us to hell, what do I do? And not having answers for them, that was the worst surprise. But good surprises, all of the adult support that I wasn't expecting from not just South Georgia, but all over Georgia, all over the South, all over, the US, anyone who's read my story, people who would just message and say, hey, I'm from there. I survived your school, or hey, I can't send you money, I'm going to send you, a prayer, I'm going to send you these words. And then being able to pass on those messages to the members of the Gay Straight Alliance and having them see that person's like 40 years old and they were gay in Berrien, they lived. So that was the best surprise, was when older people would come back and reach out back to me, back to my peers. I really wasn't expecting that, and it was really inspiring.
Excellent. Thank you guys for being here, and have fun tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think, growing up, especially at this time, there's a lot of like online resources. Steph, you have your YouTube channel. But on the opposite end, there's also kind of the increase in cyberbullying. And I was wondering if, you had any experiences with that or friends growing up with that, and how people now can kind of address that and work through it.
I mean, cyberbullying is definitely, it's a huge issue that's going on, and I feel like as technology is increasing and we're being connected in so many different ways, there's also many different ways we can come up with precautions. I mean, before you get on a bike, there's the chance of falling, and that could happen with going online as well. So even what I've noticed is there's ways that you could even block phrases from showing up on comments. So I could flag any LGBTQ plus slur or word that I just don't want to see on there, and they will be completely gone. And then you're not giving those people their voices. Because I feel like the reason why cyberbullying continues is because you allow them to have the power by even when I get people commenting back saying, you can't say this, this is awful, that's what they want, a reaction. So by simply taking their voice away, that's the easiest way to win, and it doesn't need to affect you.
Now, I don't have a huge online presence. I just don't.
Yeah. I think it also applies to like people without online presences, because, even within their kind of like sphere of people they interact with, you have Facebook accounts, and there's a lot of people that you're kind of like friends with and are kind of more acquaintances. And like growing up, you're, on these accounts a lot, and kind of the responses on those personal accounts are almost more personal attacks and can be like harder to work through. And so do you have any comments regarding that?
Back in middle school, I was Facebook savvy, tail end of MySpace and Facebook.
Wow, I wasn't allowed when you were so much cooler than I was.
What?
I had the password.
Oh, that's my mom who had my password. And until I went through and was like, why am I friends with these people? Occasionally there was the F slur, the Q slur, the D slur, the T slur, all those fun ones. And I would, in shame, delete the messages, but it would still like be there. Like, someone said that to me, someone who sees me daily. So what I would suggest doing, block the person and online and block them IRL. Control your circles, control your safe spaces. Try not to let those toxic people into where they can even touch you.
Good advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for being here. So I have a question. So it seems to me that you're actually kind of advocating on two fronts, unfortunately. The front of, being LGBTQ and any other letters, and the front of people that people tend to be mean to, and what that's like. And that's very sad, but it feels like it's very true. So how do you kind of find the balance between that and keep both of these messages kind of separate and important?
I try to make sure any safe space that I'm part of or create is a safe space for all people. But it's important when you're organizing those kind of spaces, you have your message clear from the beginning and make sure everyone involved knows this is a space for trans rights. This is a space for intersectional feminism. This is a place for, this group. But also make sure any safe space is a safe space universally. So as the organizer, as whoever's, as the moderator, the organizer, the facilitator, it's kind of up to that person to make sure that everything stays separate and important.
What I've experienced, especially at my school, was when I was bullied for being gay, I feel like it wasn't that I was being bullied for being gay, it was just I was being bullied because it was something different. So before I was out, I was made fun of because I had a wheelie backpack. And I had a friend who was made fun of because she hasn't cut her hair since she was 4. And I'm like, this is, whether I came out as gay or I came out as, a bear, I would be made fun of because it was different. And especially having a safe space to go to, which I didn't have at the time. I know if I did have a GSA, my entire adolescent experience would be completely different. But online, I did have those safe spaces and I did have those resources. And I feel like it is so important to continue to grow these safe spaces and to show the entire world, no matter, because you can come out when you're 5, you can come out when you're 50, that no matter what, there is a community for you. Even if you feel like you won't fit in it, even if you feel like no one's going to understand, there's going to be people who, even if they don't understand, they will listen and they will be there. And that is the most important thing, because you want to surround yourself with people who listen, not people who throw you down and don't let you be heard.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being excellent advocates and activists and just beacons of positivity. So let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you for having us.